Hello everyone, I'm Kanserina Kurnia, and joining me today are Mark Stewart and Joseph Kursky. I'm a senior solution engineer at Esri.
My name's Mark Stewart, and I am an account manager in the higher ed team for Esri.
Greetings, folks. Joseph Kursky here, Education Manager at Esri.
Welcome to this video. What we will talk in this video are about what is GIS and how did we start with GIS. We'll also talk about where the technology is heading and if GIS
is a viable career.
So maybe we start with the first topic. How did the three of us get into GIS? Mark, would you like to start first?
I got into GIS through graduate school. It was 1990, and I was getting my master's degree in environmental science, and the specialty of my environmental science program was aquatic toxicology, which is a lot of chemistry and a lot of lab work, and I'm sure that is fascinating to some people. But my major professor could tell that my heart just wasn't in it. It wasn't my passion, as hard as I was trying. And so he took me aside one day and said, you know what, Mark, we're getting into this thing called GIS, and I think you ought to check it out. Well, I went up to the GIS lab. I met a guy named Bruce Hunter. He gave me a book called Understanding GIS, the ArcInfo Method, and a passion was born. I just loved this technology and I loved what you could do with it. And so the rest really is my history.
Well, I love that story, Mark. Thanks. Well, I grew up here. Behind me is my homeland, Mesa County, Colorado. So I spent a lot of time as a kid outdoors in these kinds of landscapes. So I always loved getting outside, and I always loved maps. I actually made a lot of maps just by hand when I was a kid. And so I went into geography, even though people said, Joseph, you can't have a career as a geographer. Well, GIS actually helped me secure a position in federal agencies, so at NOAA, USGS, US Census Bureau, and then coming to Esri in the education team. But I also love teaching, and so I also teach in several different universities. That's really my pathway, is like a lot of people in GIS coming into it through geography.
That's wonderful stories that two of you are sharing. For me, I studied as a landscape architect. I like designing, but my drawing wasn't that great. Then I did a master degree in landscape planning. That's the first time I got introduced to GIS technology, and I love it. I like to do that overlay analysis, suitability analysis, find the location based on so many criteria. And also I like the way that it's doing. I don't have to draw, but the computer did the drawing and do the computation. It was just a powerful technology. So then after I graduated, I joined Esri. I've been with Esri for more than 20 years. My first main job as an instructor, I like teaching. I really like transferring the technology. I like to meet a lot of people and traveling a lot, domestically and also internationally. So then that brings me to the next role, which is a solution engineer. I'm still meeting a lot of users. I'm helping them from the technology point of view. Now I'm a solution engineer for higher education, meaning I work closely with many colleges and universities, bringing the latest technology to the campus and collaborate for the teaching and also research. So we all have different background to get into GIS, but it seems like we all are the same. We love the technology. We love GIS. Maybe we can step back a bit here and cover what is GIS. To me, GIS is a science of where, understanding where something happens, when and why it happens. Anything related to location, we use GIS or can use GIS technology. How about you, Mark?
GIS is an acronym standing for Geographic Information System. And to me, a system is different components all working together. And so when I think about GIS, I think about those different components all meshing together, components like the data that we use to analyze and to create our map visualizations. The hardware, the computers that you mentioned do the work for us a lot of the time. The software tools that Esri produces, the best in the world. And the procedures that we use, the standardized ways of doing things. And then, of course, the most important part of all, the most important part of that system is us. And the imagination of the individuals and the teams that come together to actually use the rest of the parts of the system to solve problems. That's what GIS is to me. What do you think, Joseph?
Well, I love what you're saying about the people component being really the most important piece. Yes, skills are important, and we'll talk about those, but the GIS community is very much centered on helping the Earth and its people become more sustainable, healthier, happier, more resilient. And so I love that people component of GIS. I also am reminded of the following, and that is phrase, what's where, why is it there, and why should we care? So it speaks to that why should we care speaks to the action component of GIS. Like, okay, we want to understand a issue or phenomenon, but then we want to act upon it. We want to do something about it to make that situation better.
Well said, Joseph. Well, we all know that GIS has been exist for such a long time, but maybe it's still good to cover this topic, where GIS is heading. GIS today is absolutely different than GIS 50 years ago. What do you guys think?
Well, that's one of the most exciting things about it, right, Rena? When we all started in GIS, it was quite a bit. Some parts of those components were quite a bit different than they are now. I remember the first computer, the VAX workstation that I learned on. Those don't even really exist anymore. So where it's going, I think one of the most exciting things that I've seen recently is healthcare. It's really been driven home with the COVID-19 pandemic. And we've seen terrific examples of the way that GIS has been used to help respond to this pandemic and to help solve problems, how to model out the spread, model out, how to efficiently deliver resources. One of the great things about GIS is how it is always changing and in a lot of ways improving. And so I think that is an exciting growing area of GIS, and we're going to see a lot of great things come out of that.
I would say to your question, Rena, that one of the most exciting things for me in geospatial technology over the last few years is the rise of GIS and spatial data being used in business decisions. So we say in business, location, 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 right? That's the mantra. Imagine GIS being used in supply chain management. How did that phone of yours get assembled? How did that food that you had earlier today get delivered and even grown? All of those decisions, as well as consumer behavior, the best location for my good or service to be marketed and sold or distributed, all of those could be enhanced and made more efficient with the use of geospatial technology. And we're starting to see that in many areas of business. And so our team, for example, is actually working with schools of business to help professors and students to be using these tools in their workplace when they graduate.
I'm with you, Joseph. In the same line, GIS has been known and widely adopted by a wider audience and industry as well. So if we talk about the latest trend in technology, in machine learning, artificial intelligence with deep learning, data science, real-time analysis or IoT, all of them is actually can take advantage of location, can take advantage of spatial informations, and also cloud infrastructure. It's so widely used now for the web. GIS is supporting a lot of the dissemination of information through the web GIS. So in a sense, GIS is everywhere. So with that in mind, do you think GIS is a viable career? How about you, Mark?
Well, I can jump in here. I think that GIS has been a growing and expanding job market, almost since its inception. But today, the opportunities are more exciting and perhaps more plentiful than ever, because now you don't have to be just a GIS professional. You can be a lot of different things using GIS as a tool in your work. So you can be a web application developer that adds location services into your web application. You can be a data scientist for an insurance company, an actuarial, or somebody like that, that relies on GIS to perform a lot of the analysis that's crucial for the problems that you're trying to solve. So I think that that makes it very exciting. It can be in almost any job today.
Yeah, and building on what Mark is saying, I think those kinds of jobs are increasing at a pretty rapid rate. Yes, there will still be jobs where GIS is in your job title, GIS analyst, GIS manager, and those will still modestly be growing. But even more so will be exactly what Mark is saying, that GIS is a tool on your tool belt, and it helps you to be more marketable to get the job in the first place, but it also helps you contribute in more meaningful ways to your organization, whether it's a government agency, nonprofit, academia, wherever. Also, just one last thing, when Mark was talking about the evolution of GIS and from the old hardware and software, it reminds me that GIS has actually endured, or I would just argue has thrived despite and maybe because of major paradigm shifts in computing, from mainframes to mini computers to standalone workstations to the cloud. I mean, it has thrived because of that, because we want to share. That's the whole advantage of modern GIS, is being able to share and collaborate on these problems.
I agree. Both of you convinced me that GIS is a good career. Many companies are looking for someone that's good in the domain expertise, but also has the spatial analysis, the GIS skills. Is a huge potential. With that, then, what are the important skills to learn or cultivate to be good in GIS? Maybe we can start with Mark again.
Well, I mean, I think I have a couple of just practical suggestions, in addition to your fundamental GIS conceptual and software skills. I think what's going to be really important, in fact, what I think is already important, is a little bit of experience in development, whether it's Python scripting or web application development with something like JavaScript. You don't have to be an expert, but I think you need to get some experience with it and feel comfortable and open to learning it and enjoying it. I think also the flip side of that is designing. You know, creating good maps is not easy. Creating good applications for people to use is also not easy from a design perspective. And you can have something that's very powerful, but also tedious to use, and it won't be effective. So learning something about designing things for a specific purpose, I think that's a good skill to have.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, thanks, Mark. I would say be curious. That leads you to being tenacious in solving a problem, working with software. Be curious, ask questions that your employer is not even asking you. For those of you that are students watching this, ask questions that your professor doesn't even ask you. Also, I would say go outside your comfort zone in two ways. Go outside of your disciplinary comfort zone. Make it a point to work with people, even at a conference. Go to a track that has nothing to do with what you're mainly doing in your academic or professional career, but you might learn something and you get to meet different people that might have a new perspective on solving problems and new workflows and new methodologies. Also, and my colleagues are great examples of this, go outside of your comfort zone in your location. So I met both of my colleagues here on the education team when they were halfway around the world doing their good work in GIS. So that's going to be stretching you in many ways. Those are just two things I wanted to share. Be curious and also go outside your comfort zone.
I'm with you, Joseph and Mark. So I repeat the essence again. Go outside the box. Do not focus on the feature functions, but in analysis skill. Be flexible. Nurture your communication skills because, well, if you cannot communicate well the result, then you won't make much impact. And also develop your skill working as a team. One last topic that we would like to cover here: how to prepare you for taking a GIS career. I will start first with something that we have. We have free lessons from learn.arcgis.com. It has so many lessons in many different topics using many different type of software. So check it out. We also have Esri Press books, printed or digital form. And there are still many other resources. How about you, Mark?
Well, I think you probably know what I'm going to say, Rena, because Rena and I both worked at Esri instructors for Esri training. And so we have a lot of affection for and knowledge about the Esri Academy. So the Esri Academy gives you access to some of the best training materials I think that are out there. It's really high quality content, and most of it, the web-based content, is available to anyone that's an Esri customer. Now, the instructor-led courses taught by who I believe are the best instructors in the industry, those are available to purchase. But I think taken together, that's a great alternative, or resource for getting better at your GIS.
I would also add two items, and they're both related to courses. Your universities, technical colleges, tribal colleges, community colleges, they're great resources. Those courses provide a lot of fundamentals that you're really not going to get in the same way anywhere else. So those are important, and they're going to be continuing to be important parts of your educational journey going forward. Even if you've already graduated, don't forget about those university courses, online, face-to-face. Along those same lines, Esri also has massive open online courses, or MOOCs. We have about 8 or so in the MOOC library. You go through as a cohort, so you're learning along with a set of colleagues. Not only are they informative and relevant, but they're actually fun. They have personality. They have people that are really passionate about what they're teaching on cartography, do-it-yourself geo apps, earth imagery. I would say those two things.
Well, that's conclude our video. Thank you for being with us. We are real people, so please do not hesitate to contact us. You can connect to us to email highered@esri.com or connect to us through the GeoNet channel Educations.
Here's Mark Stewart signing off. Thank you.
Joseph Kursky, thanks, folks.
Thank you.